So the one thing I want to talk about is like how good the combat is in KCD2, because as a player who went through all of KCD1, and I actually did not like the combat in KCD1 in the very beginning until I got over the hurdle. I started understanding it, and then I became completely broken towards the end of KCD1, such as anybody who has, played the first game. Towards the end of that game, you are like ultimate Henry. You could fight anyone. You could pull off combos if you know what you're doing. Even the long 4-string combos, which are kind of tougher to do. If you know what you're doing, you can pull them off. However, I digress on that. What I'm saying is that KCD2 is definitely improved on the combat from KCD1, and it's a much cleaner UI. They got rid of like the 5-point system, which I believe had like, both corners where you can kind of like aim your weapon at, which I still enjoyed since, I mastered it in KCD1 as well as like all of us as players who got to the end of that game. But in KCD2, they combined that, bottom 2 hits into just one little arch. And now it's just much easier to pull off combos. It's not that hard. They have a combo sheet right there off the rip that you could just start looking at. And they go through that through, tutorials. There's plenty points in the game where you could just do practice fights to really just, tone up your abilities and get better at, using a spear, or getting better at using, a sword or a mace or an axe, and just get more proficient in the skill of the weapon that you want to, use throughout the entire game. But besides that, I mean, the combat doesn't even stop there in terms of like, just the melee, right? Even the range combat, in my opinion, feels much better than the range combat in KCD1. I felt like in KCD1, I was just like having issues with the bow, and there was times where it helped out, but like for the most part, I just longsworded the whole way through, right? But I really think that in KCD2, using the bow was one of my favorite things to do in the game. And especially, since I went for a more like stealthier thief build this time around, using the bow was really fun and I had a good time. Plus, the new crossbow in the game, which was really fun. I didn't really use the pistols too much. I used them here and there. They are fun, don't get me wrong, but it's just another option, which I do like that they added variety to the game to give you these options to provide yourself with, right? And you can use them in different elements of, a different scenario. Maybe you're versing multiple people and you need to use this to catch them by surprise, maybe scare one off. But overall, though, it's a really enjoyable experience for the most part of all the combat that they had to offer and what's provided for Henry to use at any moment of time. Another thing I want to discuss is the unarmed combat. The unarmed combat this time around is heavily improved. I really like the perk system that we're going to talk about a little bit in a second, that, actually changes the way you do different unarmed moves. If you do a proper riposte with unarmed, you'll pull off different moves, such as like a stronger hook or maybe a brutal uppercut. And then there's ways to fight in the clinch where you can, kind of like hurt their arm, but then you can get them into like a rear naked choke and, defeat your enemy that way. And they do a really good job of improving the unarmed system this time around, where it kind of like feels better, and I actually enjoy getting into more unarmed fights, especially against opponent that has a weapon, because it almost feels more rewarding in a way. So you can go with a Henry build where you just use just hands and try to dodge the whole time. That might be a fun playthrough, just going with just Henry with, the ace of clubs right here and the ace of spades, and you're just throwing bangers at people, you know what I mean? I might have to go for that playthrough one of these days. But the perk system, which I wanted to talk about, really just elevates Henry to a whole new level. You go from the beginning of this game where, you think you have everything from KCD1. They do a good job of you basically kind of resetting you a bit, and you don't get totally reset in level, but you get there to a certain point where now you have to relearn different skills and abilities, but they let you grow as this character throughout the game as you're getting XP and leveling up different things as you keep, going through all of the lands of Bohemia, and you just really just escalate to such a badass level of like, combat, where you start getting these different perks that add benefiting factors to your unarmed skill, to your, long sword skill, to your axes and maces and pole arms and everything that Henry is capable of doing. And also, to your stamina and like how you can block better with different proficiencies. I mean, the list goes on and on of how many unique perks are in the game to really elevate Henry's combat to a whole nother level. And that's just for the combat portion of Henry, which the perk system benefits so much more than ever before that I've ever seen in KCD1, where in KCD2, these perks are just out of this world on how good they are. I was going for this time around a thief kind of stealth style build where, I'm using the bow and I'm playing around with that. And man, the perk system on what it does for just, stealth and thievery and leveling up your speech and wearing different clothes to get your charisma up so you can pass different skill checks, which then you level up your scholarship so you can familiarize yourself with different areas of different parts of the world that you're in. And it just blows my mind on how in depth and how good they made these systems work, where it's like I look forward to leveling up each level or reading books and sitting down and actually learning stuff to elevate these perks to get them to the next point of where I want Henry to be in this world. And I gotta give credit to Warhorse Studios. I mean, whoever worked on the perk system to, make Henry become more badass each time, go to a different quest, a different town, wherever you're going, kudos to you, because man, that is a really good system. And I had fun, actually pickpocketing people, drinking so I can get my drinking up, and getting up my thievery and my stealth, and just having a really good enjoyment of like actually wanting to level up individual things for Henry based on the play style of the playthrough that I was doing for the stories and just the game overall. So really good job to Warhorse Studios. I think the perk system was really good. Now, there's one form of combat that I really didn't get to do much, and I really never cared about it too much, was the horse combat, where you have an ability to like really fight from your horse if you want to. You can, bow from your horse, which I haven't tried yet. You can also like, hit people while you're on your horse as well. But I'm not really a fan of that style of like combat. I know it's in the game, it's present, it's an option, but I didn't go for it this time around. There's probably, other things that you could do from your horse on the combat, but I preferred to really, just be on the feet and, either bow people or fight them, in like a crazy 1v5 scenario or 1v1 scenario based on what you're fighting. And, sometimes it's not even just people you're fighting. And there's also wolves in the game, which can be very annoying if you don't parry them correctly and try to kill them fast, because they can mess you up if you have no clue what you're doing early on. They've messed me up a couple times as well. And that's just, with the wildlife combat as well. So overall, though, I think personally, the combat, because that's really all I can think of at this time, besides like some stealth killing, and there's like a couple reverse grapples that you can do. There's not really anything else too crazy outside of that combat that's like, okay, there's much more elevation to it. No, that's really the grand scheme of all there is to do in terms of what you can provide with the combat in KCD2. And I think it's a good job. It's just enough, and it's not too little. It's just enough to keep me satisfied as a gamer and saying, man, this is a really good time. And I think the combat holds up really, really well. And KCD2, I got to give him a lot of credit for it. So this portion of the video, I want to talk about the story of the game. Now, I'm going to only talk about things that I liked, things I didn't like. I also want to talk about the exploration of the first map, the amount of like different people and quests that you can do in different locations, POIs, that I liked in the first map comparison to the second map. So we're going to talk about that now. There might be some spoilers in this segment when I do talk about the story, so forgive me, because I will be naming some characters that are in the game that I liked and that I didn't like. So if you want to skip this part and go to the next segment where we talk about like blacksmithing and the revamped dice system and stuff like that, go over there and we will see you then. In KCD2, as far as the story goes, I really like the pacing of how they make you feel like you have to go through that grind again with Henry, where Henry is not this total badass off of KCD1, and in KCD2, you and Hans are not looked at as nobles anymore because of the Chamberlain, basically thinking you guys are just peasants, you're not real nobility. He throws like, manure on Hans. You get sent to the Bellows and Trotsky, and now you guys are getting laughed at by everyone. So now you have to rebuild your nobility status, right? And you have to go through, basically reforming Henry, going through different proficiencies of like learning masteries with your weapon again, your speech, your thievery, your charisma, and your scholarship, and a lot of different things to familiarize with these new lands in Bohemia that you're not used to, and meeting new characters such as Catherine, right, and Zizka, and a couple other characters that you get introduced with as well as you keep progressing through the game. But for the first portion of the game, I really like the landscape of the lands. I think the lands are really cool. It's a lot of rocky, cliffs and different like cave system like style layouts that they decided to go with. And I like the fact that the nomads are hiding in between these to find peace and security away from the lands that they were once from. So we get to experience ourselves with different Spaniards, and we get to see how the nomads are living off the land rather being at the castles. And we get to meet some Cumans that familiarize themselves with us, and they know of Skalitz, and they were there at the Battle of Skalitz under Mark Vaughn's leadership, and they just didn't know that Henry's parents died. But then you start drinking with them, and there's like funny quest lines there. And honestly, for the most part, a lot of the quests and POIs and like the different treasure hunts that you can do in the first map, the first layout of Trotsky, and there's Easter eggs, there's plenty of them too. There's a lot of really cool, interesting locations, and for the most part, I really like the first region. I like that map a lot. It's really vast, it's really big, and I thought that was it, right? So we'll pump the brakes there real quick because we're not even done talking about what I liked about the first portion. So when you get to the wedding, there's a lot of interesting faces you get to meet there. Hans makes his way there somehow, some way, because you and him are not seeing eye to eye. But this is where now you guys start brawling, and then the Chamberlain throws you into the dungeon of the Trotsky Castle, and he wants to execute Hans at this point. Now you're trying to find out a way on how to prevent that. And you find out Catherine's at this castle as well, and you're figuring out why you're always bumping into her. It's like she's a mysterious figure. But this is where, for me, the game takes a severe slowdown. Like, the game goes from 1, 2 to 3 on the shift, and then it just stops. And because it happens because of the series of quest events in Trotsky's Castle, which, in my opinion, have to be one of the most annoying quest lines in a main story portion of a game, of any game I've ever experienced, where it's a lot of back and forth running. And it's not to say that the layout of the castle is bad, it's just the way that it's implemented a part of the main story rather than being a side quest or something of that nature. It has a good concept behind it because you have to like do it before a certain bell rings, before like Hans gets executed from the Chamberlain's orders. But I do think the quest line, for the most part, like all the things that you have to do in like rapid succession, are quite annoying. And that's just my personal opinion. It doesn't affect the entire game. I just didn't like that area of the game. But after that, when you have to sneak around through the castle because of Ishvan Toph being there, and Eric, which is now, his like new adopted son that, follows him and takes a liking to him. He's a real, scumbag as well. Ishvan Toph is the guy who has your father's sword, and you get to, get your revenge at this castle. And there's a lot of interesting events that happen before, too, little parties that you get to do before you meet up to this, encounter with him. But like I said, for the most part, I think that the castle is like the slowdown portion of the first segment of the game. And then after the castle, when Otto and Burgo, he comes back, and, obviously you find out that he is like working with King Sigismund. You get to meet Zizka along the way, which you and him get into a fight. And then you realize Zizka is actually a good person, and he has his band of friends, and Father Godwin returns. And then you go back to the castle, right? And that's where you go through the whole little night raid and you fight Toph. This is where now, fast forward, you get into the second portion of the game, which in my opinion, now it goes from 3rd gear to 6th gear. The game elevates, and it's like watching an anime and seeing a studio put all their budget in the next like final episodes, because it is just nothing but pure quality here in terms of POIs, in terms of the landscape, the map. In my opinion, Gutenberg, the whole second portion of the game is completely gorgeous. But not saying the first portion isn't, but the second portion is just a whole new layout. It's more flat landscapes. For me, it's a better traverse through like just going from different cities or towns to different inns. And talking about cities, Gutenberg, I have to put this on one of the best POI locations of just quality, multitude of different NPCs doing different things with different interactions and different altercations. Things happen randomly. I have to put this up on the cream of the crop of like places I've ever visited in any game I've ever played before. And I've played, great games. Don't get me wrong. Witcher 3, Final Fantasy 7, right? Games that had beautiful cities, very awesome places to be at. And especially even like in, Elder Scrolls with Oblivion, right? Like just visiting different places there as well. I've never seen such a highly detailed place with so many NPCs on the screen doing different dialogues, different things at once with different, encounters happening, and just so many people with the frames being stable. And I know I'm glazing the fuck out of it, but it's just the truth. Gutenberg is badass, dude. Like, there's so many different shops there, different professions happening. The Thieves Guild is there. There's a bunch of different quarters, such as the Italian quarter to the Jewish quarter. The Germans are there as well, and just a multitude of different life and variety. Gutenberg, by far, the best fucking thing in this game. Hands down. And even the whole region. Gutenberg is, in my opinion, is better than the first one. It's just a matter of opinion, but I personally think it just opens the game up way more. And plus, talking about the story again, one of my favorite characters in the game, in the second portion, is Catherine. Catherine, honestly, like, without her and her medical expertise, her doing, like, thievery things as well, and just being a critical component to the Devil's Den, like, gang and, like, the members there, Catherine really holds up. Like, she's actually a really cool character. I really liked her character a lot. She goes from a character that you didn't really know nothing about. Henry laid her eyes upon her the first time. You know, obviously Henry likes her. And you find out that, you know, she was a part of, like, her village and her people getting, you know, murdered from Sigismund's, you know, armies, right? And how her husband got, you know, murdered, and she just, you know, is just a woman that is just hiding a lot about her past as well. But she's taking care of all these guys, man. She really puts them all on her back, especially at the battles of Sukdal, when you're taking refuge there against the Hungarian armies of Mark Vaughan, who is trying to get the silver there. She's taking care of all those armies for like 30 days straight. Or not the armies, but like your whole band, the whole army in this castle taking refuge to just defend yourselves. She's taking care of all of them. She's the total gangster, in my opinion. So much glaze to Catherine, for sure. Towards like the middle portion, towards the end of the game, you get to see Zizka is just trying to hold up everybody and really keep the band together, keep people going on and, you know, fighting, even though they are, you know, going through such a lot of trials and tribulations towards the end of that game, when, you know, the shit is really hitting the fan at the Battle of Sukdal, which is like, you know, the 30-day battle that happens, and they are exhausted, right? And I honestly really like this character. Obviously, there is historical accuracy that might be different from what he is representing in the game, but I will say for the most part, I think they're going to grow upon Zizka, and there might be a DLC for him. I don't think that's the last time we're going to see him after the story ends in KCD2. I think there's going to be more than meets the eye in this term of Zizka losing his eye here. And when the Dry Devil basically accidentally shoots him at the end too. But there's more that meets the eye with Zizka than we think, and I think that's not the last time we do see him. I actually like Zizka. I thought he was a cool character, and he held it up for being the leader of the band at the Devil's Den, right? Other characters that come to mind that I liked as well was Rosa. I think Rosa was really cool. Like, you know, she's just this, like, noble girl that is, like, you know, living in, you know, Gutenberg, right, with her family. And she's handy with a crossbow. And she knows about the Italian courts and the underground tunnels. And she introduces you to that. And, you know, Henry falls a liking for her. I thought Rosa was a really cool character. She was just really chill. I had really no issues with Rosa's romance there, because that was an option for, you know, Henry. And he really liked her. I also think Father Godwin returning was a character that we're familiar with in KCD1. I was really happy that he came back this time around. There's a lot of interesting quests that you could do with Father Godwin, especially when you get to the Italian courtyard portion, when you're acting as, like, you know, the person sent by the Pope. And I thought that was a really interesting dialogue where Godwin is just getting drunk the whole time, and he's just tired of this shit, and he just wants to basically Henry and his boys to just take over the courtyard, get all the silver, free, you know, the noble lords, and move on with his day. So seeing Godwin again return and him holding up, and also they gave us a lot of, like, different interactions with Godwin, where Godwin is pretty damn handy with a sword, and he can fight, man. So Godwin, you know, having those interactions, I thought it was pretty interesting going to those parts. Even though I just wanted to get back to Henry at certain segments, I was happy to, you know, experience that through Godwin's perspective. I thought it was a nice touch of the story for the most part. So we talked about our heroes and the people that we liked in this game so far, but I want to talk about the villains for the most part, because I think that's where the game is shining, right? Is who are the bad guys that are making Henry and his band of friends and the rest of Bohemia that is trying to get free from Sigismund regime, making it hell. And I think the characters such as Istvan Toth, you know, his adopted son Eric, we get to see Otto van Burgo, we get to see Mark Vaughan, and just to see how they're in control of so many things, and they're just taking all the orders from King Sigismund and just, spreading it through all the lands, making it hell for, Zizka's band and his friends and Henry and all of us, the good guys, just trying to make peace in Bohemia. And they do a really good job at making a lot of, unfortunate circumstances happen during the story, where they even turn some of your own friends against you within your own band at a certain point in the game, which I won't spoil. But it's just crazy, like, how much power and control that they have through their spread of their hand through all the lands. I think personally Otto van Bergo is the best one, because you can just see on his face, his face is a snarky villain. He turns on you at the Trotsky Castle as well, and they just do a really good job of giving a lot of twists and turns with some of these villains to really show you that some of the villains that you think are bad, they're really not all that bad. They're just taking orders from Sigismund, right? Like Markovat von Olotz, he is a guy that is, you think he is this horrible person and he's killed so many people, but at the same time, Henry's killed a lot of people as well, right? So it's like, it does a good job in the game showing you, like, the balance between, this person might be a villain, but at the same time, they're a human being, and you get to experience that through each villain as you go up against them during, points in the story, and finding out more about them as you, get face to face with each one of these villains. Besides King Sigismund, which is the only villain we don't get to go face to face with, he flees away at a certain point. Obviously, that is a spoiler, but he flees away at a certain point towards the end of the game. But besides that, the villains do shine here. I really like to see more of them in the future, if we get any DLCs, or potentially in Kingdom Come 3 down the line, because there's a lot of growth, especially with Eric, Ishvantov's son. We get to see a lot with him. I'm really curious about what they're going to do with him, because there's a certain point in the game when you and him are just, facing 1v1, mano-y-mano, and obviously a lot of things happen during that segment where it's basically a setup. But man, is it a good cinematography shot there that I really liked a lot. But for the most part, the villains are really cool, and I liked all of them. Now, for characters that I didn't like so much, and I felt like were kind of pointless, and I just didn't really pay too much of a mind to, it's not really a lot, to be honest with you. It's really just one, and it took me by surprise, because I was really looking forward to this character the most, because I thought he was going to be an exotic merchant that sold, exquisite goods, and maybe he didn't want groschen, but he wanted different forms of money or some type of material. And it was Musa of Mali. Unfortunately, Musa of Mali, for me, is the biggest letdown in this game. Not because of, the character's design or, his story or where he's from, but he just wasn't interesting as I thought he would be. When you're at the camp at, Sigismund's camp with Catherine, and, you're trying to prove his innocence of, like, if he really murdered somebody or not, it really didn't care too much about this character. I didn't feel like his reasoning of being there was so important. And then you get to the Italian courtyard where he does save you, where they kind of, like, give him a light in this story. It kind of does feel a little forced, I'm not gonna lie. Like, they kind of force him into a situation because his use is really not all there. I felt like they could have done much more with him in terms of just like a side quest, like a really good side quest chain that really made you like this character, rather than being part of the main integrity of the story. But I just feel like he was very forced at the Italian court. And then at the end, at the Battle of Sukdol, he's there too, but it's really like, him just being a member to help out, like healing other people with Catherine. It just doesn't feel all that great. I think he's a character that, as a character himself, in another scenario, he would have worked, but not in the instance of the main story. I feel like it was very forced, and I didn't really just care too much about him. But overall, though, maybe they do something else with him in a DLC that improves upon it, so I'm looking forward to that. Now, to wrap everything up, like I said, the second segment of the game, in my opinion, is just truly the best segment of Kingdom Come 2. In my opinion, I do think it does overshadow a lot of stuff that happened in the first portion, but once you get to the end of Kingdom Come 2 and you're just this total badass at the end of the game, you get to revisit a lot of areas in the, the Trotsky region, and you get to stomp any other quest that you didn't finish out there because Henry's just, fully kitted out, and you got a lot of points in the main level, and you just feel super strong, which deservingly so. You should feel that way after you went through all that shit in the game, and Henry's always going through another brick in the road and trying to get to his end destination on getting, revenge and justice for his, family getting murdered, right? But honestly, I will say this. The story in this game is absolutely phenomenal. Even with, you know, Musa not being my favorite character, even with some slowdowns at the Trotsky Castle, even there's a portion that I didn't even mention where, like, you're a waiter at the meeting between Sigismund and his political leaders with Mark Vaught is there. That's a little slowdown portion, but it's not super bad in comparison to the Trotsky Castle. But for the most part, the story's awesome, dude. I have nothing but good things to say, and I'm looking forward to what they do with DLCs or Kingdom Come 3 come the future with any other story-related things. So, let's talk about the professions in this game, because there is a lot of professions. When it comes to blacksmithing, finally, you can perform blacksmithing in Kingdom Come Deliverance. After all, we are a son of a blacksmith, so this should happen. And I'm going to be honest with you, there's times where I just find myself just doing this because it's very fun. I like making quality 4 weapons and getting it to the highest quality possible, and you can't mess up on it. People will say in the comments that you have to flip the sword, by the way, and you have to do this or follow a rhythm or listen to the whistling. The whistling does help, but you don't need to flip your weapons to make quality 4. Trust me, I've done it. I've made the dueling longswords already at level 4 quality. You can just leave it there on one side and keep hitting it up and down. That's the trick. I don't know why there's such confusion on that. However, though, just hit it on one side and you'll get quality 4. Trust me. Regardless of that, I really do like the blacksmithing. I'm happy they introduced that into the game because it's a fun mini game that you can do to, you know, craft a higher quality weapon of any, you know, style of gameplay you're trying to do, whether you want to do axes or pole arms, right? Or if you want to, you know, just do just swords or long swords. Honestly, it is really fun. I would like them to take it a step further to see how much more different types of gear we can actually craft via blacksmithing. I think that would be very fun to experience, but we'll see how far they take it with the DLCs and the future, because I'm sure they're going to mess around with it 100% on doing more things. I would love to see even a multitude of new weapons if they ever want to go down that route too, to introduce within the blacksmithing as well. They also improved dice as well, like dicing. I'm not gonna lie, Warhorse Studios, your dice people have set me up, dog. All right, I have been bamboozled in the early stages until I figured out what dies I have to go after, and then they added the whole badge thing now, where you can have different badges that give you an advantage in the game, or you play a little bit more defensive in the dicing. I figured out the hacks already, alright? But in the beginning, this shit was rigged. I tell you now, I was losing more times than none and flipping the hell out. Yes,
These ones here.
Come on, be shitty, be shitty, be shitty, be shitty, be shitty, be shitty. Oh my gosh, yes, 6.
The dice are falling my way today.
This needs to stop. This needs to stop.
Finally, I won! What a nice badge. I'm sure you'll miss it.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll miss this too.
Why are you showing that off? Pathetic. Very good. Oh! Ah!
But yes, dicing is very fun. I find myself just chilling at taverns sometimes, just playing that. And honestly, I probably should go around and verse everyone in dice. So that's what I'm going to do probably after this video. Just go to every town and beat everybody in dice and just prove a point once and for all. I even like now too that you can go hunting in this game as well, just to improve the quality of how much you are getting from selling different types of hides and different types of, you know, antlers and pieces to vendors to get more bang for your buck. So they did add a little bit of interest there, which I'm really happy that they did that and paid attention to, because there is actually a lot of wildlife in the game that you could go hunt if you just want to live out your hunting dreams as a woodsman, right? So I really do appreciate that as well. And I wouldn't really consider this a profession, but personally, working with the Thieves Guild and doing all the side quests with them was really fun. And just living my life as a stealthy rogue, going through the cities of, you know, Kutenberg, and just going through different points of people's houses and robbing people blind. I thought that was just a fun profession in itself. So I'll consider this a profession for the sake of the video, because I just thought it was really fun. Let me know if you guys enjoyed the same thing, because I personally thought that was like the most enjoyable experience for me, was just being a thief in the night and nobody was catching me. I was out of there. We're knocking people out, we're sleeping them, and we're going to sell stuff for some valuable currency or just handing these missions. I thought it was a really good time, making Henry more of a thief build more than anything. And also the score of this game. The music in this game is just absolutely beautiful. It hits at the right moments, at the right cutscenes. Everything is just set perfectly at the correct moment to express the feeling at the time of what's going on, the sense of betrayal, the sense of a reunion, the sense of victory, the sense of denial. They really do a good job of expressing emotions through the soundtrack. I honestly really love KCD2's OST. If you want to just like listen to it on YouTube, just in the background while you're just macking, it's just really good. And I gotta give so much credit to the composers. Every time you hear it at a different cutscene, it just really adds to the atmosphere, and it really just vamps the game to another level for me to be immersed as a person playing the game and just macking. I'm cozy as hell in my room. I got the lights down low, and I'm just living in my medieval fantasy. I really like the score of this game. I think they did a phenomenal job, and I couldn't ask for anything more. So real quick, I want to show you guys this because the Codex in this game is absolutely phenomenal. I've played so many games where, like, I'm a sucker for just, like, looking into the lore of things. Just like with The Witcher 3, I would read about the monster, what they're weak to, why people don't like this monster, where the origins of that monster comes from, and, judging things based off of, like, the human interaction and the monster interaction in Witcher 3, which, I cared so much for, even before just hunting the monster, right? And in this game, they even dive deeper of, like, talking about actual historical accuracy of things that happened during these times that people considered either diabolical, or this was a certain type of remedy for medication, and looking into things like astrology, looking into things about weaponry and armies, and how horses were utilized, and charities and different religious events. And it goes so deep, like not even just the general portion, which they talk about their schooling and how society was just basically surviving during these times, but these are just like the general things here. Then they dive even into, for example, and sorry for my mouse clicking if it does click on the video, I just have to do it for this section, but the characters, explaining the characters that we get to meet, like the Dry Devil, they go into his lore as well, right? They go into Catherine, another character that we meet into the game. They have Musa of Mali as well, and several other characters that you get to approach yourself with or just hear about during the game. The same thing that goes with the society and how everyday life was. The same thing with crafts and events and different locations in the world from the different nomads that are taking residence here in old Bohemia, and they're living off the lands. It explains their origins and places that they were from. I mean, dude, this is badass. This is so cool. And the best part about this is that you don't need to like really look into the Codex if you don't want to. But I guess we can say this is a bonus perk section of the video. But if you start reading, right, and my character ended the game at 28, you go to skills and you go to scholarship, right? And we'll go right here. For example, let's say you decide to never go scholarship, but you're focused on everything else, but you don't go scholarship, you're going to miss out on literally like fundamental perks that are just completely insane for the game. Like, here's an example. Fundamentals of law. If a guard wants to arrest you for crimes, you can use scholarship in skill checks now. So not only intimidation or, persuasion, charisma, all that stuff that you need, you can use your knowledge to get out of a certain situation and to avoid fines, which is absolutely huge. The same thing that happens with medicine. Your healing potions are 20% stronger. So the potions that you make, right, from alchemy, or if you just buy them, they'll have more bang for their buck. The same thing with theology. With theology, if you pray at shrines, which I didn't even mention in the video, but if you pray at shrines, right, you get an in-game buff. And if you get the second portion, it doesn't only last 12 hours, it lasts 24 hours. And it's a permanent buff on your character for 24 in-game hours, right? And this is what I'm talking about. And the best perk, in my opinion, more than anything, there's a lot of good perks here, but the Explorer perk. The entire map is revealed, showing you all the settlements, the fast travel spots, the hunting grounds, the caves, and other POIs. And if you don't believe me, look at the map here. This is the complete map of the Trotsky region. The complete map of everything here. And the same thing happens if I were to take this to Kuttenberg region, it would show you the whole map. It's insane. There's some ports in Kuttenberg for some reason that are a little clouded out, but it's all the POIs there, and it shows you everything, which is completely busted. That's why I think it is totally worth looking into, reading books, getting your scholarship up, and just, unlocking more stuff for the Codex. It's a pretty cool thing for the game, and I dig it. So one of my favorite things about this game is the customization in the drip is absolutely phenomenal. Like, if I want to wear my charisma set, I have my full charisma set, which is really high. Most of the times I'll pass a lot of dialogue prompts comes with this set. If I want to rock my, you know, full, basically battle set where I'm fully plated out, I have that set as well. And then if I want to rock my thievery set, it's just a switch of a button. I have my thievery set, and I can basically be, you know, completely shadowed in the night and do all the thievery and stuff that I want to do. There's so much more drip in the game, but these are like the sets that I like, you know, rocking right now. And you can get so many different things in the Trotsky region, or if you go to Kutenberg and then you're finally, you know, stealing things from the armories or the weapon places, or if you just buy them, you know, completely up to you. There's so much drip in the game that I just really feel like it's just so fun doing all the different customization, and how much, you know, stuff that you can actually play around with is just really enjoyable. It's really great. And that's only for Henry, right? That's not even considering the horse, which the horse, you can get different, you know, drip for the horse as well. In KCD1, there was like a big meme that, you know, getting armor for your horse was like impossible. I think you can only get it for the head or the torso. I forgot which one it was. I think it was the head, but I could be wrong. You can let me know in the comments below. But in this game, you can get a multitude of different saddles and, you know, comparisons, so like, you know, the garments that the horse can wear. You could do a multitude of things to make your horse completely badass, and, you know, make him either faster or have more courage or stamina or speed, and just completely get dripped out. I think the customization in this game is really badass, and I just wanted to add this portion to the video as well, because honestly it's something that I have to talk about, because the drip in this game is 100% really good, and I appreciate it. So not only that, I mean, they have added also like just a variety of different food and different drinks that you can have in this game now in comparison to KCD1, but they also added the ability to let you dry your food, which is actually really cool. So like you can get different perks as well to have the ability to basically take a food or a piece of food that's almost rotten, like let's say cheese or, you know, pork tenderloin or deer, right? And you can dry it at the dry rack, and then it'll give it 100% quality rating to basically make it last longer. And the dry racks are just really good. They're in a lot of towns that you could dry your food in, and it's a really good option. Usually they're next to alchemy stations, which is really cool because the alchemy in this game is just, you know, improved upon. They did such a good job of explaining it better in the alchemy book now on what to do from like a 1 to 5 segment of like how to do this, you know, whether you have to grind it or you have to add it to the cauldron, or, you know, what recipes or herbs you need for this particular potion you're trying to make, and how to do it. So I really think they did a much better job, and also adding new potions to the game that just improve the quality of Henry overall when you're out there in the world or talking to people, and it's just a really good thing. I really enjoyed the alchemy system in this game this time around for sure. For the most part, that was a lot of stuff to talk about. I have to say, everything that I got to experience in this game in terms of what I've been through, all those hours I put in, looking back at it, and just like, it's like a flash to me already, and I just want to go back and play even more. This game is amazing. There's no words to express how much of a good time I had with it, and just seeing the amount of effort put into it is absolutely breathtaking. It really is, and I can't recommend this game anymore to anyone else who enjoys RPGs. Like, if you enjoy RPGs, you're gonna enjoy this game much so. And honestly, you know, I think the hard work that they put into this is something that you cannot discredit whatsoever. I can easily see this being a nominee for different things at the you know, Game Awards a year out from now, whether it's Game of the Year or just wins other things for, you know, cinematography, for, you know, the music at least, or the artwork and visuals. I could see it winning a lot of things for sure. I give this game a solid 9 out of 10. Nothing's ever legendary, trust me, but this gets a fucking 9 out of 10 for sure, and I would recommend it to you amigos as well. Please check it out. Much love to you. I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, lock it in, keep on keeping on, all that good stuff, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace out. Oh, by the way, anyone said that Henry wasn't banging a lot of chicks in this game? Every girl we went by, every chick, we hitting it. Much love to them. Settle down and use some Vaseline while you're doing it. Lock it in.